Welcome to Momivate Momversations on the Win-Win Women Network. We are so grateful for this platform, the behind the scenes friends that make it all work smoothly so that we women can gather to care, connect, and collaborate. Truly a win-win for us all. I'm your hostess, Reagan Barnes, mom of 8 and founder of Momivate. We're a nonprofit organization that empowers you to elevate your mothering experience. Also joining us today is Julie Lee, author of the book I See You. And joining us today is you, Mom. You are joining us, and we are so glad to have both Julie and you. We welcome you into the Momivate community, or Mom Unity, as we like to say. We are moms united in our passion to create a better world for our children, with our children, and through our children. Join us and become a Mom Unity member. It's free on our website, momivate.org. And when you join our Mom Unity, we'll send you a free digital copy of our Smile Journal, where you can keep track of what you learned from each of these Momversations and set goals to impact your personal achievement based on this educational program. So let's get this Momversation started. Here at Momivate, we answer the question, what do moms do? With this uplifting statement: moms raise up society. That's right, not just our own kids, but all of society, including ourselves. This acronym is jam-packed with the far-reaching impact of intentional mothers who strive to improve and progress in these areas of motherhood. We're not just chauffeurs and short order cooks. As we do repeatedly, morning routine and bedtime routine and load after load of laundry, it makes an impact that goes beyond our homes. As moms, we're uniquely positioned to influence society one-on-one as we take on the repetitive but loving work that shapes our children, and it shapes us too. Today, with our special guest, author, podcaster, and mother, Julie Lee, we're going to focus on the relationships category of this acronym and even get more narrow and dig into a specific subcategory of relationships, those relationships that we have with other mothers. Reaching out to help as well as for help, and choosing to be compassionate, or we could do some wordplay there and say mom passionate, rather than a lot of the judgment or comparison that goes on. So, Julie, you've written the book on this. It's titled I See You. Tell us more about you and how you developed this beautiful vision of how we can support each other as moms.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, my passion and drive came because I started struggling with debilitating anxiety and depression when I was about 21. And it was really the compassion and connecting of other people that was transformative during those years, and truly saved my life. And so I really came out of that experience feeling this drive and passion for people to realize the impact they can have on someone hurting, on someone suffering, and people that are experiencing everyday things as well, right? But like, I think sometimes we downplay what an important role that is in healing for other people, connecting and showing compassion. I mean, you can't fix things for people, but if you can see them, really see them in those moments, like it's life-changing. It was for me.
That's amazing. I love that. So what have been some of your passion projects throughout your motherhood?
So my podcast was big. I mean, even before that though, like I was always like making and selling jewelry. Like I always was doing something. I taught school. But really, really the ICU mission, it started with the podcast, ICU, and I recorded over 100 episodes there. So it's fun to be on here. And then I got contracted to write my book, I See You, How Compassion and Connection Save Lives. And then I really, from that stemmed what I'm really looking forward to now, which is a speaking career, corporate speaking. And I've been speaking a lot in schools. And I also just came out with a children's book called Broccoli Punzel. So that's really fun too, which is a book all about self-acceptance and seeing each other. But it's told in like a whimsical fairy tale format. Fairy stale. That sounds like it's very stale. It's not. It's exciting. Right? It's good. But it's been a lot of fun. It's something I can't, like, when I'm not working on it at all for too long, I feel something dying inside me. It's really important to me. So yeah, thanks for having me.
I heard you use the word mission, and I think you called it the ICU mission.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a beautiful way to describe when you feel that compelling desire to move forward and make an impact.
For sure.
So let's see. Here at Momivate, we have some guiding principles that help us filter out the excessive and conflicting advice that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in taking a few of those principles and applying them to our relationships with our fellow mothers. So there's this concept we call the principles, they have keywords. So the keyword is contact, that in order to have a relationship with someone, I have to have some sort of contact with them. Whether that's spending time in person with them, if it's talking on the phone or listening. These kinds of interactions are investments that increase the quality of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
How does that apply to the things that you would talk to moms about as you encourage moms to have that kind of compassion with each other?
Well, we're coming out of some interesting years with the pandemic, right? We've been wearing a lot of masks, but what I love about it is that we still can see each other's eyes, right? We're still able to do things to make contact. And especially, I think with other moms, like, I don't know about you guys, but motherhood is incredible. And it can also be incredibly isolating if you're not intentionally making those contacts with other moms, right?
Yes,
Sometimes
I think
having
the biggest obstacles.
yeah, and just having someone else to share your experiences with, to not feel crazy with, right? Like that.
And that's why we actually in our organization Momivate, we really go away from the term stay-at-home mom. While we certainly honor women who choose to be full-time moms, we don't want them to ever use that label because of the subliminal message that it sends to stay at home. It almost sounds like you're talking to a dog, right? Like it's
Never thought about that. That's interesting.
it's not this opportunity, it's like you're stuck in those four walls. And so we just have that, we realize that there's that subliminal message that's keeping us isolated.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I don't know. I know for me, it's really important to have that social interaction. I'm pretty extroverted too. So when I came home from working in a career and I was at home with my kids trying to find those passion projects, right? And but you don't always know what you want, but certainly something we can all work on is making sure we're making those social connections, because it's breathing life into you, right? It's keeping you sane. Getting that adult conversation, that contact is so important.
Right. And you used the word extroverted for yourself to describe yourself. And there are those of us who are not extroverted. Right. And in that situation, we kind of have to realize that other people need us. And so while we might not derive a lot of energy from the interactions, we have energy to give. And that might be one reason it's kind of draining for those of us who have that introversion, right? Is we realize we're giving and so we need time alone to recharge, where my understanding with extroversion is the opposite. You kind of get that charge by being with people.
Yeah, I
And
have
yet
so
it's
many.
never the answer for even for an introverted person to remain isolated, you know?
For sure. Yeah, I have so many friends that are introverted. And but even they still need contact. Like they
Yes.
might like smaller groups or one-on-one or not as often, but almost, they're all like still like, man, this pandemic has been a whole new world for me. Like, is this what it feels like to be you all the time? I'm like, exactly. Like, so we all need people, maybe in smaller doses, not as often, but like we all need a few people in our corner, It
Yes.
doesn't need to be everyone. It doesn't need to be a big group, but we all need people. Yeah.
And they need us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a back and forth kind of thing. It's a two-way street. It's a bridge. I've had the goal. This might sound kind of silly, but I need to increase the amount of hugging that I do with my kids. I personally did not grow up in a hugging household, and so it like is a goal that I make. Okay, kids, time to hug. But they interestingly, they are kind of like, whoa, where is this coming from, mom? You didn't used to hug us. I have a range in ages, and my 3-year-old, of course, is all about, yay, great, more hugs, but the teenagers are kind of like, you're in my personal space, and
Yeah.
that's something that's just like a small metaphor for how it feels sometimes to want to have that interaction. And of course, hugs are a physical form of intimacy, so to speak, but there's that sense also, friendship wise, right? When you might not be going into their bubble, so to speak, physically, but in order to have that kind of vulnerability with each other, do you have any suggestions that way of how to, since it is a two-way street, how do we broaden and invite those kinds of relationships?
Oh, I mean, number one that comes to my mind when you say that is being willing to share your story. You don't need to share everything, right? Like I share my story quite publicly. I still don't share all of it, right? There are things that my husband and my therapist know that I don't talk about because it's not helpful. It's not helpful to the audience I'm speaking to. Um, but and I'm talking from a speaking standpoint, but I just think it's crazy how much sharing my story and being vulnerable with people, how much they then are willing to share. People that say they're introverts. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, I've never told anyone this before. And why is that? I don't think it's just because I have a superpower of sucking information out. I think it's because they feel vulnerability and they feel this silent permission of like, oh, maybe it's okay to talk about this. Like maybe this is okay. And so I think making those connections, and I really feel like we don't want to, like Brene Brown says, we don't want to hardwire connection. We don't want to throw, things out there to seek a connection. But just being willing to be honest with our feelings that day is huge. Being willing to say what's actually going on in your life, and not just giving the answers you think people want to hear, but just being yourself, I think is huge. People that can do that around me, no matter how different we are, I like them. I gravitate towards them because they're just being them. So I can trust them as a friend, right?
Oh, that trust is huge.
Huge.
Yeah. And trusting them with your feelings, even if you think maybe they've never gone through this, you might wonder or potentially doubt that they can really empathize, but you're still willing to be authentic with
Yeah,
them. That's another, synonym to vulnerability.
for sure.
Um, and then how do you gauge when you are, you know, sharing too much, possibly, or when, how do you handle it if they don't respond in the way you thought they would?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, how do I know if I'm sharing too much? I mean, I just rely a lot on my gut, on how it feels, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I've gotten better at that. I've gotten better at not oversharing, because I am pretty open. But there have been times when, yeah, I haven't received that connection in return, and that's okay. I go for other places for that, but I think don't stop the searching, and don't stop being yourself, even if it's not returned the way you want. We can't control other people, right? Like we can't control other people. And that's a miserable way to live, to try to control other people's behavior. And so I think you just know that that's their thing. You know, you don't take that personally, which is easier said than done, right?
That's true. I do think, though, that that leads us to another concept of acceptance and then like reflection, and then being able to take what you've discovered and apply it in your relationships. How Tell us a little bit about your angle of acceptance, even with somebody who might be disagreeable.
Yeah. I mean, that does make me think a lot about just accepting that I am responsible for meeting my own needs.
Mm.
That's hard. Like that is a hard process to accept that. And I feel like I've had to accept it again and again. Sometimes it's really fun. Like it feels really in the moment. It's like this instant gratification to be able to blame other people, right? It like feels like you're just like, oh, I don't have to carry that. But in all reality, like if we can fulfill our own needs and assert our own needs, right? Tell people what we need. If we can accept that, I feel like nothing can stop us, right? Because our emotions are no longer they're no longer tied to other people's behavior, which can change, go up and down all day, right? It's like a roller coaster. But if we can accept that and accept that there are going to be people that don't like us, that's hard. That's hard for me. That's really hard for me. Oh my goodness, that's hard for me, right? But especially for me and maybe your listeners, like whatever it is for you, whatever your venture you're doing or your passion project, or even with your kids, it's hard to like have our kids not like us, right?
Yes.
That takes vulnerability and acceptance. And there can even be some mourning, I think, in acceptance. And I think that's appropriate. You know, we mourn maybe how we thought marriage was going to look or how we thought motherhood would look. And we thought we'd always have like the chocolate chip cookies warm and waiting when they came home, right? But acceptance of it's meant to be challenging too, you know?
And that's how it,
And
yeah,
so
that's
much
how
of
it
the pain is
refines us. Yeah, it refines us through those
of
challenges.
our pain is the struggle of not accepting, I think. So I think that's a great concept you talk about, just accepting what is, right?
Yeah. And then being able to determine the best way to move forward together. Um, you know, I do still have a child who is not interested in hugging despite my efforts to reach out in that way, and just being willing to respect that and not label, like if I'm going around hugging everybody, not be like, oh, but not you because you don't want to hug me,
Right, for sure.
just allowing for them to have that, and maybe they'll change their mind someday. I think that acceptance ties into respecting, that, as you do that accepting and respecting, you're showing, like that person is valid as they are, and that you will just basically accept that, and treat them as having thought things through for themselves, even if you disagree, even if it's a stance that you personally would take differently. Um,
Well, and it's unconditional love, right? It's unconditional love for humankind, you know. I want to be around people that I don't totally agree with because I feel like it balances me out. It balances out when I think I know everything about something. And then hearing other perspectives, it either helps me realize like, oh, I haven't looked at it this way, or it only encourages me like, oh no, I really do think that this is the right way I want to go, you know. It only
that's a
helps.
good
So
point.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Now, do you, in your book, I see what kinds of, like, if you were to pick out a few of your favorite tidbits of guidance for us, what would you share?
Well, first, I think I would share high definition thinking. And what that means, that's been something that's really been life changing for me. And I think of it, I say high definition thinking because I think of it like the TV, the television, and how the television started in black and white and then it went to color and then it went to high definition, right? And I talk about that, and I speak about it quite a bit in terms of that, where we often think about each other and ourselves in absolutes, black or white, good or bad, wrong or right, right? A lot, and it makes sense. It's kind of a survival tactic, I think, as children trying to make sense of the world. Kids a lot of times see things in very black and white that way.
Yeah, they
Don't see the
categorize it.
nuances, yeah, and the complications, good guys, bad guys, right? And I think we can see other people that way as well. Like, the guy that flipped me off in traffic, he's a jerk. Like, he's a jerk, right? That's all he is. But if we get up closer to people, we connect with them, which almost always after connection, what follows is compassion, connection and compassion, right? That's my book, How Compassion and Connection Save Lives. It's almost like the lens can change to color, right? We're getting up close to their story. We're seeing them for what's really going on and not just in a black and white attitude. And then I feel like our thinking can really be elevated when we're not just connecting and having compassion, but we're looking and we're able to find their strengths, what they add to the world that make the world a better place, and that blesses our lives. That to me is seeing in high definition, which is the most vivid picture, the most realistic picture. Because the honest truth is we're all made up of good and bad choices and different biology, different life experience, different convictions based on our personal life experience. I love the complicatedness of human beings. It's so fun, and it makes for some really challenging situations too. But I just think we are so much more alike than we realize.
It's interesting to hear you appreciate that we are all complex rather than, put up your hands and just surrender or be like, oh, people are too hard to understand, for you and hopefully for those of us who want to adopt that kind of attitude, we can see that it's not a matter of trying to simplify everybody just down to black and white, but it's a matter of allowing them to have that depth, like a high definition TV, right? Like it's a flat screen still, but it's alarming how different it is from the previous types of screens from our childhoods, that it really does give you this 3D almost feeling as you're watching it.
Totally. It's so true. Yep. 100%. Do we have time for me to share one other thing?
Yes, please.
Another one that I'll say is learning, giving. There's a chapter called Giving and Receiving. And we talked a little bit about trust in a friendship with other moms, I think is the context we're using. This idea that when I give, that's great. But I also need to be able to be willing to receive. When I am in a relationship with someone that will give help, but they won't ever receive mine, I don't feel like that's a trusting relationship. I feel like in a relationship, you need to be able to give and take because it shows vulnerability. Sorry, not take, give and receive. Taking and receiving are different. And I talk about that in my book as well. But if you're not willing to receive from me because it's too hard for you, what does that say about me receiving from you? Right? That you see that as some sort of weakness. And that doesn't feel like trust to me. And then when you say, yes, I can watch your kids, I'm not sure if you really want that or not. Right. Because when I try to watch your kids and I try to help you out, you say, oh no, I don't want to be a burden. Right? What does that say? There's some
It says, and you are a burden because I watch your kids. Yeah.
Exactly. And so those friendships are very hard for me to develop. While I still love people that do that, it's hard for me to feel trusting and like I can share. That goes back to what you asked, how do you know when to share? I don't share as much because I'm not comfortable, right? Like I still love them, but I don't feel like I can just share the way I can to a friend who, is like, yeah, let me take your kids, and like, oh my gosh, I'm having the worst day. Could you help me out here? Like those are the relationships that I share everything with because I know that we see each other, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And be honest and have integrity. So I think just being willing to give and receive is huge. That's been a big life-changing principle for me.
Right. I think a lot of these principles can be life-changing for us because of how they will change how we interact with our fellow moms. And I'm really glad that you've been willing to take this hour today to be with us. I'm going to start sharing my screen again. And this is going to be your cute little family. If you want to take a little minute to tell us about them.
Oh, I'd love to. Oh, they're so cute. Yep. So this is us. They're a little bit older now, not much, but this is us on Halloween a couple years ago. So that's my husband, Rob. He's Who Boy #1, we called him. And that's me. I was Cindy Lou Who. Lydia is Max the dog, and Sam is the Grinch, of course. We love the Grinch. And I actually have this whole story on called Whoville Needs You. It's the second chapter of my book. We love the Grinch for so many reasons. But so Sam is about to turn 7 in just a couple weeks. He's so excited for his Star Wars birthday party. Lydia is 5. And Rob just turned 35. I know we don't usually say ages when they're adults, but who cares? And I am 31. And we just love each other so much. So Rob and I, we met in college, and we've been married. We're coming up on our 12-year anniversary. And Sam was actually an in vitro baby. So it took us years to have kids. And then we had a cycle of in vitro that worked. We were so grateful. It was our first one of that. We tried a lot of different things and different medications and surgeries and things, but IVF, it worked the first round, which we're so grateful for. And then Lydia was just this little buy one, get one free. When Sam was only 9 months old, and I miraculously became pregnant. And we've never had any babies since. It was just that one time, and she just snuck her way in, and which is incredible because my husband and I both have fertility issues. Wow. So we don't really know how that happened, but she has got the fiery personality to match that experience. She is so bold and fiery and does whatever she wants. So it doesn't surprise us now knowing her. But yeah, that's my cute little family, and I just adore them. We're the Lees, and we love the Grinch.
The Lee family, all the Grinches. That's great. Well, I want to let everyone know that Julie is offering 20% off her books through her publisher, cedarfort.com. Use the code Julie20. It's there in the lower right-hand corner. And if you're looking for an amazing and talented speaker, contact Julie through her website, julieleespeaks.com. As we have been hearing such good info here with you, Julie, I want to encourage you, our viewing audience, to take a moment right now to write down some of the key points that stuck out to you personally. You can use the digital smile journal or just a notebook. We want to remember what we've learned from this Momversation, and putting it into practice will be the next step. But writing it down is like the first gear down there at the bottom of the screen, and it leads to other movements. And so we just really encourage you to activate those gears, make those far-reaching positive changes. So this half hour has gone by so fast, but what a delightful time we've had. And thank you, of course, for joining us. It's time to end our recording and start our live interaction with our viewers. So if you've watched this as a recording, be sure to catch our live show every Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, so that you can also participate in the second half hour, where we continue the conversation directly with you, unrecorded. We want you to be part of the discussion, and that's how Win-Win Women TV is unique. We care, we connect, we collaborate.